You are Locked On Falcons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Falcons Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste, and joining me today are Jarvis Davis and Aaron Freeman. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. And the Locked On Falcons Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So 4 quarters. 4 scores for the Dirty Birds today. And that's an exciting thing because 27-21 is a good win for a good win. So let's just get right into it and talk about how this team was able to improve to 6-3 on the season. So after weeks of, as my friend Aaron Freeman loves to say, bend don't break, which really gets him fired up. The Oreo defense, which is what we came up with last week, or the Atlanta Falcons defense, said, you know what? Free, not today. Baby, not today. So let's start off with the group that, in our opinion, has really underperformed the most, and that's the linebacker core. And I think we should start with Kaden Elliss, because Kaden Elliss had a couple of big tackles. If you go back even to that opening drive in the red zone, that really kind of helped the Cowboys be limited to a field goal. And then you kind of look at the Cowboys go with this jet sweep on a 4th and 1 for whatever reason. Elliss sniffed it out, got a turnover on downs, another big sack, 1st and 20 on the in the third quarter, and that had the Cowboys selling for a field goal too. So Jarvis, how about the linebacker core today for the Falcons?
Wow. I was amazed, because when you think about the play that they have, like you mentioned, like, has it been, I feel like it up to par, because I'm used to seeing Kaden Elliss be in that spot where he's the guy, being around the football, making tackles, coming downhill, and you saw him move there. You saw him in like 2 different lights too, right? From an off-ball linebacker standpoint, coming down and making plays on the 4th and short, on CD Lamb, making a tackle and sniffing that play out. And then you talk about him getting pressure, putting the quarterback on the ground, right? And getting a sack. And he was looking to the sidelines to make sure, like, hey, that was a sack. You know that, right? That was a sack. And I just love the way this team played. And I think that Kaden Elliss, 55, he was leading the charge today.
What about you, Free? This was one of those days where it harkened us back to knowing, okay, that's why Terry Fontenot went out and got Kaden Elliss to come to Atlanta.
Yeah, we watched all last season Kaden Elliss ball out pretty much on a weekly basis, not only impacting the game as a run defender and coverage, but also as a pass rusher. You've seen the pass rush ability this year so far, especially over the last month, in the month of Kirktober, now that we're in Kirkvember. I had to throw that in there, guys. But, I think Kaden Elliss had probably his best day as a pass rusher, getting that sack, getting several pressures. I think he ended up with 3 quarterback hits in this game. So a very effective day for the Falcons pass rush, as well as getting some other sacks from other guys in this game. But you also saw him making those impact plays against the run and in coverage that we just haven't seen consistently this year from Kaden Elliss. And so to me, this game was one that this looked like the Kaden Elliss that the Falcons went out there and paid to be sort of the quarterback of their defense, the guy that wears the green, that calls the defense, that true middle linebacker and impact player. And so he definitely deserves praise for that.
Yeah, and another guy that we've been just waiting to see do some good things. Arnold Ebiketie had himself a pretty good day, and it was really kind of from start to finish with like a coverage half sack on that 2nd down in the Cowboys' 2nd drive of the day. And then, of course, you looked at him just with what he was able to do throughout the course of the day, making good decisions, 5 solo tackles. And, you just look at what he was able to do with, of course, like I said, the sack and the tackle for loss. But for you, Jarvis, I don't think it was just what the numbers said. I think there's a good performance that belies even the numbers for AK.
That was one play in the second half of this game that it wasn't a tackle, it wasn't a sack, but it was just a matter of holding contained, because that's been one of the things that we think about, being able to make plays and as a unit and being able to rush as a unit. He made a play where I think Cooper Rush, he tried to kind of peek outside and try to act like he was about to get outside of the pocket, and Arnold Ebiketie just held off Guyton, who he was giving a lot of problems today. He held off Guyton and flashed, and Cooper Rush thought twice about trying to run outside and get outside the pocket. and he forced the errant throw. It's just a little things like that I feel like Jimmy Lake was kind of hinting at. A lot of people was giving a lot of flack for his comments throughout the week, but I think that this is what he was talking about. Just the little things to be able to force bad plays, because sacks are great. Don't get me wrong. We talk about it ad nauseum on this postcast and on the Atlanta Football Party. But you're able to force bad plays, force errant throws. Those are the type of things that help get you off the field, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Indeed. And how about for you, Free? We finally looked up and said, "Oh my, Arnold Ebiketie." Like, we mentioned his name over and over and over again, which was a good thing. How about 17 in the day he had?
Yeah, I think Jarvis nailed it. We haven't gotten, no one's getting sacks on this Falcons defense, and so given all the speculation about are the Falcons going to make a trade on ahead of Tuesday's trade deadline, a lot of that rumors are sort of heating up over the last 48 hours. You sit here and you go like, okay, like maybe they don't have to make a trade if Arnold Ebiketie can make the plays that he's making. If we can get this version of Arnold Ebiketie, who was also sort of over the last month stepped up his game, gotten a lot more pressure, but it was nice to sort of see him get home with the sack. And I think Jarvis nailed it, right? This is the game where when you hear the comments of Jimmy Lake that doesn't quite go over with some folks in the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia, but like this is the game that it's like, okay, like this is what Jimmy Lake is talking about. You saw, again, the Falcons aren't going to transform overnight into a great defense, but you just want to see the incremental improvement, the details and whatnot. And I think today's game showed you some of those things that this team is working on, so that hopefully if they continue down this path and we'll be playing some meaningful games in January, that defense, by the time we get to the end of Kirk Simber into January, like then we'll see a defense that is playing great football.
I love this. I got to write this down. Kirk, because I was trying to come up with a new term for Kirk, by the way. So we'll talk about that in the second segment. But Free, you mentioned the incremental piece there, and that kind of reminds me of not just incremental play, improving, meaning improving from each player, but also kind of everybody kind of collectively contributing in some way, shape, or form. So, of course, I got to go to your guy, because we would be remiss if we don't talk about Nate Landman, who, besides Kaden Elliss, of course, having 13 tackles, Nate Landman had 10 tackles on the day as well, and really kind of made his presence felt too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yep,
I was just gonna say, we know what Nate Landman is. He's a physical downhill runner, a run defender, and is sort of that enforcer on the defense. And I think you saw signs of that today.
And for me, that's my guy, Landman. That's the Landman is the guy. He was out there today. He was being that guy, roaming around and trying to get that ball out. Man, that man is trying to perfect that punch. He's trying to put the ball on the ground for that wide receiver. So I feel like he was more of himself today. Like Aaron mentioned, he's not the guy that's going to be in pass coverage, sticking with doing sticky coverage and all that stuff. That's not his game. And I'm totally fine with that. So for him, if he's coming downhill, getting those TFLs, taking on those guards and getting off those blocks and coming off and making tackles, man, that's his game, and that's where he needs to be. And we saw that today for sure.
And switching gears a little bit, Jarvis, because I know there was something you tweeted that I thought was really interesting. You talked about the adjustments that you saw made on defense, and you gave the example in particular of James Smith-Williams. There was something that you saw that you liked because he was in on early downs. You said even on the 3rd and long, you saw Matthew Judon come in to rush. So what exactly did you see, maybe looking at that bigger picture overall, that you liked and you felt was one of the key reasons, or some of the key reasons, that this defense was able to be impactful today?
I think it's a matter of having a plan for him, and not necessarily, hey, put him in it and set it, forget it, and let him start. Be the starter throughout the game. And if he gets tired, you kind of sub in. I think it's more so coming in for packages, right? Because on this particular play with James Smith-Williams on the edge, and then you had Arnie Ebiketie on the other side on the other side of him, and that's one. And Ebiketie was more so the constant on that from an edge standpoint, guy coming in, and then when the 3rd and long came around, then you saw Judon come in and help rush the passes. So I feel like that's more of for him going forward. I feel like that's the best case scenario for him as far as from a rotational standpoint, and not necessarily being the all-time starter. And we saw him get a batted pass. He had you had a recorded stat today. So, hey, maybe this is what we need to see from him going forward. Not necessarily being a starter, but being the guy that can come in and give you like rushes that are going to be beneficial to this defense and help get them out the field.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to watch the Falcons at the end of the game when Dallas was clearly in pass first mode to try to come back, and you weren't seeing David Onyemata, you weren't seeing Matthew Judon out there on the field. It was a lot of Arnold Ebiketie, it was Damon Harris sort of kicking inside to replace Grady Jarrett.
Malone too.
Yes, D'Angelo Malone as well. Zach Harrison and those guys. And so, given all the speculation, again, going back to talking about the trade stuff, you do wonder, okay, if the Falcons go out there and add another edge rusher at the trade deadline over the next day or so, is it going to be Matthew Judon, sort of the guy that's going to be more on a pitch count moving forward? And I think today sort of gave an indication that might be the case moving forward.
Indeed. Well, you know who wasn't on a pitch count today? 7, because he was absolutely all over the place. He was on one, and you can thank Zach for that. We'll explain in the deep dive. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is brought to you by Robinhood. So with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. So sign up at robinhood.com/gold today. Now, terms to apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. And remember, investing involves risk, rates may change, and gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100% of your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Why? Because Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash, and you can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Check this out. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Texas, and right here in Georgia. And it's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download that app today after you finish watching Locked On Falcons, the postcast, and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Why? Because Prize Picks is where you need to go to run your game. All right, guys, super refreshing, of course, to be able to talk about the defense and talk about the good look that they had first in the first segment. But Free, you got to talk about what this offense was able to do as well, particularly Bijan Robinson, end of the day, with 145 all-purpose yards, single game record, 26 touches for him. And a big part of the offense's success today was because of that aggressive play calling by Zac Robinson, going forward twice on 4th down and actually converting. Here's the thing, though. The Falcons are 11 of 15 on 4th down in 2024. So for you, how did you like the way Zac deployed Bijan and also took advantage of a mismatch, but trusted his offense to keep drives alive today?
Yeah, we talked about this on the Atlanta Football Party earlier this week, where we talked about how, the Falcons' 3rd down offense hasn't always been consistent this year. And you kind of saw that reflected in this game once Drake London went out the game, that the Falcons struggled to sort of convert on a lot of 3rd downs. But fortunately, as you mentioned, T, they were able to convert on some critical 4th downs that were allowing them to be able to get points on the board, and great play design, especially on that Darnell Mooney touchdown where he got this sort of pick route on Trevon Diggs. But talking about Bijan, I think a lot of the success that the Falcons had, where we were talking about with Zac Robinson, it's like that early down success, right? And a lot of that was, whether it was a handoff to Bijan, whether it was a passing play to him, a lot of sort of swing passes and check downs. And, it's just when you have a player of his skill set, it's just like get the ball into his hands and let him go to work. And you saw that on today's game. And you saw, even though the Falcons weren't necessarily great when it got to third downs, they were able to move the ball effectively because of how good and efficient their offense was on those early downs. And so that's what you want to see with Zac Robinson, being able to compensate, being able to keep, the Dallas Cowboys defense on its heels, moving forward with some of the plays that his playmakers were able to make in this game.
Yeah, and I felt like, Jarvis, anytime the Falcons were driving down the field, I was just looking to see, okay, how they're going to employ 7. What's going to be the way that they utilize 7 this time? And I was so excited to just see that continued evolution of utilizing a weapon like you have in Bijan Robinson. But also, again, with Zac Robinson, I thought he had another good game of play calling. I thought he was also aggressive. I've said it from day one. I love the fact that he and Raheem Morris are not afraid to go for it. It could be a 4th and 1. It could be a 4th and 4. If they feel confident that they can move the chains, they'll do it. But yeah, great day for Bijan. Great calling by Zac Robinson. And I love what you said. It was a masterpiece.
And coming into this game, I really felt like Mike Zimmer was going to continue to do what he's been doing in his playing man coverage. He wants to do that. He put his linebackers in those particular situations. Unfortunately, he was going up against probably one of the better young running backs in the NFL than Bijan Robinson. And him one-on-one with anybody out there lined up with the ball in his hands, I put my money on Bijan 1,000% of the time. And because whether he was matched up against Eric Kendricks or if he was matched up against Trevon Diggs and out there in the flat, there was nothing they could do. It was just so beautiful to watch how, like, when 7 get the ball in his hands, there are a lot of people that probably start tinkling down their leg because it's nothing you could do. It's nothing you could do. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how quick you are. The man in space is probably going to win, and there's nothing you could do about it. So you hope he runs out of space on the field and just try to push him out of bounds. So that's what you saw consistently throughout this game.
Yeah, and like you said, it's one of those where you kind of feel like, there's nothing you can do about it, because as powerful, as angrily as Tyler Algier runs, there's just something about Bijan Robinson as well. It's a little bit of a different anger, but I still feel like there's some grimy anger in the way he runs. And once he gets that ball catches the ball out of the backfield, I feel like for him, it's straight ahead. He sees nothing but daylight. But Kirk Cousins, you got to give him credit too, because today there were times where he just found ways to keep plays alive, to extend those drives. And, that was really a big reason that the Falcons were able to score the way that they did. It was his 43rd career game free with 3 or more touchdowns, 19 to 24, 222 yards on the day. So because you have already christened the name, I was going to ask you, are we extending Kirktober here? But I think that you have already christened a name that you would like to give it this month.
Yeah. When you look at Kirk Cousins' historic numbers, like we talked about this going into the season. He usually starts the season slow in September. You saw that this year. Then he usually starts to get things going in October. And then he's usually even better in November when you look at some of his numbers historically. And so it's like Kirktober, Kirkvember are very fitting names. You got off to a good start against a, struggling Cowboys defense. You saw this Falcons offense in firm control of this game for most of the game. And you saw Kirk doing the thing that we've seen him do a number of times the last couple of weeks. And that was one of the questions we had. It was like, yes, he has carved up the Tampa Bay Bucks team twice in the month of October. Outside of those 2 games, you're not looking at sort of an incredible season so far from Kirk Cousins. And the question was, can we expect that level of Kirk Cousins moving forward? And today the answer was yes, we got that version of Kirk Cousins, a player that was very comfortable, able, as you said, T, when he was under pressure, being able to find things, understanding what Mike Zimmer was going to throw at him, being able to get the Falcons into the right play, finding those checkdowns when the pressure was there. And again, getting the ball into Bijan Robinson's hands and letting him sort of cook on some of these swing passes and whatnot. You saw that connection with Darnell Mooney. You saw a couple of nice passes for Ray McLeod as well in this game. So overall, you saw the command from Kirk Cousins that you want to see moving forward that says, hey, it's not just the Falcons are great against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's this offense can be great against anybody.
Oh, hold on, y'all. Let's slow down a little bit. We're getting these skill guys a little bit too much credit. How about that doggone offensive line? Yes, Lord. Amen. Amen. Somebody.
Shout
Come
out
on
to the
now.
O-line, yes.
When you think about that Tyler Algier touchdown.
Oh, no question. No question.
My goodness. Caleb McGarry,
Caleb
sir.
McGarry was determined. When you saw the 76ers.
Sir. I'm talking about
Yeah.
went down there and got up in that mug and just grabbed the man and just
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Oh. That did something to me. I don't know if y'all can tell. That did something to me.
In his sanctified soul,
I might have to go to the bathroom after this postcast because I might be a little, what I'm saying, something might be going on with my bodily functions. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. Aaron. I'm excited. But yeah, shout out to that offensive line because you knew coming into this game. We talked about weaknesses of teams. We started to point out those weaknesses of teams, Aaron. We talked about it on Locked On Falcons. How this is one of the worst teams against the run. Can the Falcons take advantage of that? They did that. Now, it wasn't crazy, 150 yards, 175 yards, 200-yard rushing, no. But, man, you talk about having that consistency, being able to lean on that run game as the game goes along. And, when you get to a point where you're up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter and you're able to kind of, close that bad boy out. So, yeah, I think this is something that we have to talk about as far as with this group, with this offensive line group coming into the season. The expectation was, hey, they have a chance to be one of the better collective groups on this squad, and we're starting to see that because Kirk has time. He's back there chilling on that touchdown pass to Ray. Man, back there eating, reading the newspaper, putting his Uber Eats order after the game, all that stuff. He was doing everything, man. He got it all done. He ain't got to worry about it when he get home. Wife ain't got to cook no more. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, offensive line, especially Caleb McGarry, start with him, man. That's a yeoman's work today. Yeoman's work.
Yeah, tip of the hat to Caleb McGarry, because to see that touchdown kind of unfolding and to see the 76 before you saw the 25 getting into the end zone, it was just a beautiful thing, because that's all about, as some of our friends here in Atlanta say, that's all about that want to. And that's what we saw come through today. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what's next. Has this been the best game of the Falcons this season? We'll discuss. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is brought to you by Hillsdale College. So time is our most precious commodity. Don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, history, economics, great works of literature. Did you study these things in school? Probably not, but even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they've not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. So a few of the courses that are available through Hillsdale College: Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, and a brand new documentary style course on socialism and other ways of democracy, or other forms of government, shall I say. So all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. hillsdale.edu/locked-on. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. You can continue to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So guys, when you look across this game, 27-21, a solid outing. The Atlanta Falcons improving to 6-3 on the season. When you look at those 6 wins, would you say that this was the most complete win or the most complete game of the season, Jarvis?
Yeah, it has to be when you think about it. I think special team was a little little shaky a little bit, just a little you know what I'm saying? But I think that I think the defense kind of covered up for it. You had the fourth down stop. You had the fourth down stop on special teams as well. You know, and Natron Brooks, man, catch the ball, boy. You still running. He still running if he catches that ball. You know, he's still running the football. But yeah, I think all in all, this is probably has to be, if not the most complete game, it's definitely up there in the top two for me as far as the way the offense played, because it wasn't anything gaudy. It just played a solid game. Yes. Obviously, you know, Kirk Cousins, Kirko out here doing his thing. Well, we in Kirk Vember now, Aaron. You know what I'm saying? Kirk Simber coming on up, and then if we can January, but January, however you want to say it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you let me know, Aaron. But I think overall, yes, this has to be one of the better games I've seen. When you talk about special teams, offense, defense, was one of those games for sure.
How about for you, Aaron?
Yeah, it's definitely the most complete game. Like, we've seen better offensive performances from the Falcons than what we saw today, but this was one of their better offensive performances of the season. This was probably their best defensive performance of the season, outside of maybe the Saints game earlier this season. We'll see if they can repeat that next week. Who Saints just lost to the Panthers. Shocking. I'll wait to talk my trash until we get to Monday. But just had to slip that
Jackson awaits, but okay.
But and Jarvis said like special teams was a little iffy, but you saw that stop on that fake punt and whatnot. So I think all three phases you saw the Falcons in firm control of this game. Of course, the Falcons always got to make it dramatic at the end of the game and just dial up the drama. And like, oh, you remember the Falcons losing on an onside kick to the Cowboys? Let's win on an onside kick against the Cowboys this time around. But I think overall, when you look at all three phases, you look at both sides of the ball playing well. I think this is definitely the most complete game of the season so far.
And to add to that, just by the overall feel of this game, and just by when to go for it, when not to go for it from both sides, I felt like this was a game where I felt like just the Falcons were a better coach team. All right, just overall, from an overall standpoint. And I think that, a lot of people say, yeah, they're supposed to be, Cowboys are a dumpster fire. But like, we have to acknowledge these things when they do come up, because we complain about them, right? Man, the Falcons got outcoached today. Oh, man, the Falcons doggone didn't do what they were supposed to do today. Like, when they do these things, we have to highlight them, because, a lot of people want to, throw rocks when it's all bad, but when everything all good and they get wins and they're doing what they're supposed to do, everybody get quiet. Like, no, this is one of those games where I felt like, okay, the Falcons have a better coaching staff than the Cowboys coaching staff, and they showed that time and time again in those moments, when to go for it on fourth and long, getting those stops on fourth down, on special teams, and turn the ball over and giving the offense a good field position. So yeah, I think this was not only a complete game, but one of those games where you just said to yourself, all right, the Falcons coaching staff got him one.
Yeah. And guys, I've been checking my phone because, of course, we know our fourth partner in crime for our Atlanta Falcons football party on Mondays, Tori McElhaney, is in the press conference as we speak. So I just wanted to double check to see there are no additional pieces of information regarding Grady Jarrett nor Drake London. But let's just talk a little bit about what we know at this point, Free. Obviously, you look at a guy like Grady Jarrett, who has come back with a vengeance. He's just a little over a year removed from that torn ACL last season, but was ruled out of the game in the second half today with an Achilles injury. Obviously, we hope it's not serious. Even today, he had 2 solo tackles, a tackle for loss and a sack, and then 17 tackles solo on the season and a couple sacks as well. But more importantly, and again, we hope that it is not serious, but if it is, what are some of the things, not just on the field, but off the field, do you lose if you have to lose Grady Jarrett for even a game this season?
Well, looking at it on the field, Grady has been their most disruptive player on the interior. Like we've talked a lot about, the Falcons' early down struggles on defense, and it's getting teams ahead of the chains on third downs. And that's led to some of those teams' success moving the chains on third downs. And when this defense has generally gotten stops on those rundowns, on those early downs to keep offenses behind the chains, it's usually Grady Jarrett's the guy that's out there disrupting, and you saw that on Sunday today as well. Mm-hmm. So you're losing an obvious disruptive presence that is kind of critical, that when this Falcons defense is just functional, a lot of it is owed to Grady Jarrett being out there as a run defender, as a pass rusher, getting pressure on the quarterback. So you're potentially losing that on the field and off the field in the locker room. Like this guy alongside Jesse Bates and Kaden Elliss, these are the leaders of your football team. Throw AJ Terrell in there as well. And, who's going to step up and fill that void, that leadership void, that sort of guy that with Grady Jarrett is sort of like everybody marches to the beat of his drum. He has been that guy in Atlanta for a number of years, 6-7 years at this point in time. Everybody comes into the building. You have, borderline Hall of Famers like Calais Campbell coming into the team last year and saying, this is Grady's team. I'm just here to support. And, same thing with David Onyemata. And so if you lose that player for any amount of time, you're going to have to rely a lot on some young guys. And, it's you lose that veteran presence in the locker room. And so like, it's just an unstable situation. Like it's hard to even explain like what you're losing just because like the Falcons, like last year when Grady got hurt, they had David Onyemata. They still have David Onyemata, but he's not playing at the level that he was playing last year, that he can sit there and go to the younger players and say, hey, I demand excellence. Now, maybe this could be potentially the catalyst to get him to step up and play like that version of David Onyemata that we've seen in the past. But without Grady Jarrett there, that you're losing a big leadership void. You're losing a big on-field void as well.
Yeah. And like Aaron, what you said, you're spot on. Is the type of play and the leader that Grady is like you can't replace that. You can only try to fill the void, right? And we filled that void with production. Guys like Zach Harrison came in. You saw him bump down inside, which is not too much big of an ask, right? Aaron, I remember when you were going back and forth with guys on Twitter, they were talking about, oh yeah, let's put Zach Harrison on the edge. Calm down, sir. That man is a 4-eye defensive end and 3-4 bench, sir. That's who he is. That's what he's going to be, right? But I think that with him stepping in and doing what he's been doing, and he's going to be called on if Grady is out for an extended period of time. Those type of guys you're going to have to look to give you those extended snaps, and it's unfortunate that Rook is out. So he's on IR now. So like that defensive tackle spot is getting a little thin, but you did have Kentavious Street. He stepped up. You saw him getting some pressure. You saw him splitting some double teams and getting in the quarterback's face and making him move off his spot. So these are the guys that they're gonna have to step it up as Grady is out for an extended period of time.
And real quick, Free, we also know that Drake London, unfortunately, was ruled out today after sustaining a hip injury. Man, made an unbelievable catch in the back of the end zone, left side of the end zone before he went out. 48 catches, 525 yards, 5 touchdowns on the season. Absolutely was having a breakout year. So, again, you're talking about hopefully not even a single game that he's going to be out. But what does the Falcons offense miss should Drake go out?
We talked about it earlier, the third down stuff, right? Like Drake has been by far Kirk's preferred target. I need someone who I know is going to get open. I can fit it in there in a tight window on a 3rd and 5, a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 7, whatever. Drake London has been that guy for the Falcons, and you saw it in this game where the Falcons, once Drake London went out of the lineup, I think they were like 3 for 11 on 3rd downs. And as I said, they were able to make up for that with some key critical 4th down conversions to Darnell Mooney. But in terms of getting those tough yards, on 3rd downs in the red zone, Drake London has been that guy. And we did not see Kyle Pitts really have much of an impact on this football game. And so if you're going to lose Drake London for any amount of time, you're going to need not only Darnell Mooney to do the Darnell Mooney things that we saw him do today, you're going to need Kadero Hodge, you're going to need Ray McLeod, and you're especially going to need Kyle Pitts to kind of have to step up and be that security blanket that Drake London has been so far this season for Kirk Cousins.
Indeed. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Locked On Falcons postcast your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by the Atlanta football party now on Mondays and Thursdays for a double dose of all things Falcons. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you next time.